Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of these particular hardcovers that have come out recently from Dark Horse Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to be looking at some hardcovers that have come out recently from Dark Horse Comics. I've done an overview just a couple of weeks ago of some recent trade paperbacks, but these are some that have come out in the last couple of months, and some right at the perfect time with October. Oh, yes, some of these are phenomenal. A big thank you to the folks at Dark Horse for sending us copies of these books. And every one of these is a hardcover, but I will show you what the build of them are one by one. So we are going to kick it off with Young Hellboy, Assault on Castle Death. And as always, in the description of the video is where I'm putting the timestamps in case you just want to jump around or, you know, you're only interested in a couple of books. But before you even do that, don't forget to smash that like button. Please, that goes a long way for the channel, and it is a very small thing you can do. All right, now we can get started. Young Hellboy, Assault on Castle Death. This is a standard size hardcover, and it's just art on board. And we had a Young Hellboy comic released last year. Well, not a comic, but the hardcover released last year. But I feel like this one, I don't know, this one just really got me. I've really enjoyed this one. So it is created by Mike Mignola, and you have Thomas Nagoski co-writing it with Mike Mignola, Craig Rizzo on artwork, and then the colors by Chris O'Halloran and Clem Robbins doing the letters. So this collects the Assault on Castle Death miniseries, all 4 issues, and this takes place, practically before the first volume of Hellboy, whether it's the Omnibus or the Library Edition. It is the adventures of a young Hellboy. This one is adorable and so different. Now, for you people that don't know much about Hellboy, and you've only read Hellboy, you still know a little bit about him and his fascination with the character of the Lobster, who was his pulp hero. Like, he read about his adventures in the comics. And, you know, in the pages of Hellboy, you wondered if it's a made-up character or that the Lobster really exists until Mignola eventually cleared everything up. Now, this particular story is really interesting because what happens is a young Hellboy ends up getting a little bit sick. Now, they don't know if it's because he's been relocated or if something is really affecting his memories from the island. So it's the professor's back, and he has his own little, almost like caretakers, if you will, but it's just people that work for the professor. And while that's going on, while he's getting sick and being put to bed early, there's this secret organization that has pretty much given Robert the task to destroy this young Hellboy because they see the oncoming doom that he's going to bring. Like, big doom, apocalyptic type of war type of doom is coming. There are visions, and it is now up to him to kill this particular little kid, right? Which is messed up because, like, even Sam is like, he's just a boy. Why would anybody want to hurt him? Now, the adorable part comes with visions, and what he is either hallucinating or maybe a call from the other side is he sees his hero, the Lobster, saying, "Will you join me in my assault on Castle Death?" And Hellboy, young Hellboy, is like, "Let me go get my cape." I love that. So he gets his own little cape, and he becomes the Lobster's sidekick, and that is Crab Boy. So they go on an adventure to Castle Death, whether it's really taken place or whether it's all in his head and something big is taking place in real life. Well, that's the adventure all on its own. It's a fun take. It's definitely a Hellboy story at the end of the day. There's a couple of little Hellboy Easter eggs in here too. And all the way in the back, as they always do, is the extras where they put in sketches and sometimes designs. And there he is right there, Crab Boy. and of course the Lobster. And you have variant covers. I love that one right there. And then also by Mike Mignola. The book has 112 pages, retails for $24.99. And as far as the binding, and you have sewn binding right there. And that is Young Hellboy, Assault on Castle Death. We have lots of Hellboy to talk about. This is Castle Full of Blackbirds. And the back of the book right here. And this collects Castle Full of Blackbirds 1 through 4. And this all focuses on the character of Sarah May Blackburn, who was a character in the pages of Hellboy and BPRD. Now, do you need to have read those? Because I always get this question. Do you need to have read Hellboy, BPRD to enjoy little spin-off stories like this? No, not at all. Mignola and his group of wonderful creators have always done an amazing job of kind of catching you up to speed as to what makes these characters special, or I guess why these characters stand out and what makes them the way they are. And this particular story is really interesting. This is more like a X-Men type of story, but I dug it. Love it. So Sarah May Blackburn is finding herself calling back to this particular school that she was invited to. However, the school is not there anymore, but this mysterious young lady with red hair tells her, "Oh no, the door never closes. You're just not looking in the right place." So sure enough, Sarah ends up opening the door to what is the school for people like her, like odd people with mysterious powers, if you will. She gets her own roommate here. This is Eliza. And, you know, it's like they're learning things about their powers and how to control them. And meanwhile, she's looking for Mrs. Brooks. That's who she met. Now, she is having flashbacks about Hellboy and their adventures. And she does finally get to meet Miss Brooke right here. So they are reunited. Now, just like every other Hellboy story, this isn't all just fun and games when it comes to learning about their powers. There might be something dark. Of course there's something dark whenever you have a bunch of kids like this in the school. And who's teaching these kids? But definitely something that wants to control her power. Because Sarah doesn't know her limitations, and neither do her teachers. So this is something that is coming from the dark realm that wants to take control of her because they see this full potential that she hasn't tapped yet. And that's all I will say about it. This has the 4 issues. I love the little throwbacks to Hellboy because it's just a reminder, hey, by the way, this takes place in the universe of Hellboy. When exactly does it take place? That will kind of spoil the ending of one particular volume. So you can find out for yourself. And all the way in the back is where we have some extras. Like we have sketches here, thumbnail sketches, the layouts for the pages, original art before it's even inked. Love this stuff. And then when it's inked, and then the different logos for the cover. And I have to say, this right here, I haven't talked about the creators, so let's do that really quick. So you have Mike Mignola, Angela Slatter, and then Valeria Burzo doing the internal artwork. You have colors by Michelle Madsen and Clem Robbins doing the lettering. But holy crap, what I fell in love with was the cover art by Wiley Beckert. That is a beautiful piece. Each one of these kind of reminds me of James Jean from Fables a little bit. Or did the covers also for Umbrella Academy. And yeah, just beautiful, absolutely stunning covers. And not to say that the internal artwork isn't stunning or beautiful in its own way. It's just these really stand out to me. It's printed in this thick, glossy paper, and it is sewn binding. 112 pages, $24.99. Taking a break from the Hellboy universe to talk about Maskerade. This is the very first graphic novel that is published by Dark Horse, but it is the Secret Stash imprint. So this is Kevin Smith's new imprint. And this has a really interesting origin. And I didn't do enough research to find out who they were talking about at first, but I'll tell you a little bit about it here in a second. So it is by Kevin Smith and Andy McSelfresh, and John Spregelmeyer is the artist. Colors are done by Julia Brusco, and then the lettering by Andrew Thomas. Here is the origin of Maskerade and how it came about. And it's pretty much Kevin Smith talking about how he wanted to pitch an idea to HBO about a DC character. Now, he doesn't name the DC character here, and HBO was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, the showrunner was like, probably not. And so they passed on it. And Kevin Smith, did not want to forget the story because he thought the story was good and it needed to be somewhere. So he remembered an interview that he had with Robert Kirkman. Long story short, he created his own imprint and it's being published by Dark Horse. And here we are with their first book. Now, this came out originally as single issues. This collects the first 4 issues of Maskerade. And Maskerade is a confusing story at first. So you start off with this butt cleavage right here and this young lady who's kind of like your TikTok star gone viral. She's getting her own TV show because people have just followed her, and that is Felicia Dance. And she has a huge following. So this is where it gets really confusing. We see this young lady right here murdering this guy out in the open. We see this young lady, or what appears to be a young lady, jumping out a window and then crash landing in the spread page on a car while it's raining. And these people are just honestly acting a little weird, acting nonchalant about the death of this young woman. Now, what appears to be a young woman, the closer you take a look, and you can just see it in this line of dialogue, the lady may have the face of a kid, but she's got the body of a grandma. And sure enough, you look at her hand, she's got all these wrinkles. So that's your 2 little mysteries going on right there. Then we meet this guy, Dwayne, who is sleeping with the CEO's wife. He's a TV personality, and the CEO catches them. And he's like, all right, you're fired. So he ends up getting a job. His friend knows the people that run the show by Felicia, which is where Felicia Dance comes in. Felicia Dance comes in, and that's her news show. And he's like, I don't know, man. I think I'm above that, but you know what? I need the money. And this is when things get interesting. This is when you meet this masked character after this guy who's leaving money for this prostitute that he was with, and he's treating her like crap. He's about to leave, and he runs into this masked character. Now, I'm just going to call this character Maskerade. And Maskerade beats the crap out of this guy while telling this young lady to leave. And if anybody threatens her, just shoot them dead, knowing that she's already done that before coming into the room. Now, when it gets interesting is when she does a scan on this guy's face, and she ends up wearing his face. And the guy's like, what the heck is going on? Except he didn't use the word heck. So that's the whole mystery as to Maskerade. She has the power, the ability to mimic anybody else's face, and uses it to her benefit. Because as you keep reading about this, what this is about is a revenge story. So Felicia Dance is a huge viral star. However, somebody killed her brother, her younger brother, and experimented on her. So this is a revenge story about her trying to get those people back, the people that did that to her brother and herself. But she can't do it because everybody recognizes her face. So she might be going as Maskerade. It's still, I'll leave it at that for people that want to read this. But that is the main premise of this particular story. Again, this collects the first 4 issues. This is definitely for mature readers. It's got violence, language. The book has 104 pages all the way in the back. It's your cover gallery, done by different artists. And the book retails for $24.99. And Quick Stops, the other Secret Stash Press book. Now, as far as the binding, it is sewn binding, and this is another one of those books that is a standard size hardcover, art on board. Back to the world of Hellboy, we have Koshchei in Hell. I don't think that's how you pronounce his name. I always had a hard time pronouncing that character's name. So yes, this is a character that has shown up previously in Hellboy. And what's collected in here is the Koshchei in Hell 1 through 4. There's something else that's collected in here that I don't even want to say because it kind of spoils the identity of a particular character. That don't read the back. If you enjoy Hellboy and all the universe of Hellboy, all the spin-offs, it comes to a surprise who shows up here. So I'll just leave it at that. But let's talk about the stories here. So you have story and art by Mike Mignola for the Acheron story, and then Koshchei, maybe, in Hell by Mike Mignola, and then Ben Stenbeck, who does a phenomenal job, who's worked on BPRD before, Dave Stewart and Clem Robbins. So we do kick it off with Acheron. It's a little one-shot, and just kind of sets up the character of Acheron and the rest of his siblings that are in Hell. And that is drawn by the legendary Mike Mignola. Now, he gets set on a journey, on a mission, if you will, to go and get this guy, Koshchei. So in Hell, this is somewhere in Hell where this takes place. Koshchei is just sitting there in his own little library. He has thousands of books to read. And the character of Acheron shows up and says, look, you need to take over Hell. Now, the most important thing about this book right here is that this takes place after the final volume of Hellboy. You can find out why, but this does spoil a little bit. Actually, no, this does spoil the ending of Hellboy, so never mind. Read that first and then come back to this. So, in this, Acheron is approaching Koshchei, and probably not either one, and telling him that he needs to stop Pluto from coming back. I don't even want to say to life, but stop Pluto from coming back and reclaiming his throne in Hell. And Koshchei's like, no, dude, I got plenty to drink here. I've got plenty of books to read. But eventually he feels like, okay, I gotta go and defeat this dragon. And people keep asking him if he's found his goat yet. I love that because it's a throwback to the Hellboy stories. As a matter of fact, the ending of this, oh my gosh, it's got such a good closure for one of the Hellboy, one of the characters from the Hellboy universe. But he goes on a journey and decides to go and take on Pluto and stop his forces, and that's what this is. He takes up his sword and goes from city to city to stop Pluto from rising and taking over Hell. Now, does he end up taking over Hell, or does he let Pluto take over Hell? Or who is the rightful owner of Hell? Well, you can find out for yourself by reading the book. And that's all I will say about it. This was a great miniseries. And in the back, it's where you're going to find some character designs right here. It's what I love about all these Hellboy books. Put so much love and attention to detail when it comes to the extras. And then, what other books are released from the Mignola universe? The book is printed in this thick, glossy paper. It is another standard size with no dust jacket. It's 144 pages, and it is sewn binding. And it retails for $24.99. And here is the part of the video where I remind people to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. And also check out all of the spines of these particular books. Alright, let's continue with the overview. And here we have Lobster Johnson Omnibus Volume 2. Gonna give you an idea of what this looks like. This is the Volume 2, even though it has the very first story that I remember reading that spun off of Hellboy. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. ISBN down there, $39.99. I never miss an issue, the Comics Journal. It does have a dust jacket, but before we take it out of the dust jacket, I wanted to put it right beside Volume 1. Of course, it is a different color on the logo. Mignola, Arcudi, Zonjic, and others. Same as Volume 1. The Lobster's Claw, different color, matching the font there. And the Omnibus Volume 1, Volume 2, the Dark Horse logo. Beautiful. Alright. Now let's take it out of the dust jacket, where we have these flaps right here. Complete your collection with the adventures of Mignolaverse, Enigma, Lobster Johnson. And then the bio on the creators here on the right, with a little bit of what is in this book. Now, the book itself, very similar to Volume 1. There's the Lobster's Claw, Lobster Johnson. And right here, the same thing. It's the silver foil and embossed. Nothing on the back. And the finish on the book has that almost like a school textbook finish to it. I don't know if you can hear that scratching or not. All right, we're going to crack this book open and check out the artwork and, of course, talk a little bit about the type of stories collected in here. All right, let's go ahead and crack this open. We have some black end sheets right here. Lobster Johnson, created by Mike Mignola. And then you have stories by Mike Mignola, John Arcudi, and then the art here by Troy Nixie, Kevin Nolan, and a bunch of artists. But the one that I remember standing out is Jason Armstrong, because his art in the Iron Prometheus is so awesome. The colors by Dave Stewart and Tony Fegzula and Kevin Nolan. Lettering by Clem Robbins and Kevin Nolan. And then Tonsi Zonjic is the cover artist. So here is your table of contents, a change forged in life. I'm not going to go through all of these. So what this really ends up collecting, in case you have the trade paperbacks, is the Iron Prometheus, like I mentioned, the Pirates Ghost and the Metal Monsters of Midtown, a chain forged in life, and then the short story, The Killer in My Skull. So this is the second volume, even though it has the very first miniseries of Lobster Johnson. So for the people that don't know who Lobster Johnson is, he was a character that appeared in comic books. So it's almost like a meta type of character. That's Hellboy reads the adventures of the Lobster. He's not called Lobster Johnson, it's just what the title of the book is. He's just known as the Lobster, who's kind of like your pulp hero, kind of like your Doc Samson type of character, or the Shadow, if you will. And he wears this outfit right here and is a complete badass, and he's all about justice, and that's it. And no matter who or what stands in the way. Now, his justice is a little bit different than, let's say, Batman's justice, right? His terms of dealing with villains is a lot different than most superheroes. But like I mentioned, he is Hellboy's hero. So the stories in here range anywhere from him helping out this Santa Claus that was kidnapped by some mobsters. You have some zombie stories here. Let me see. This one right here is the story with this artifact that these people want to get. And of course, the artifact is cursed. But the story that I want to talk about, even though there's some great stories in here that feature this character, a lot of Japanese folktale that shows up through these pages. All right, but this is the story I wanted to talk about. This is the Iron Prometheus. This is the one that came out many years ago, and it was a mini-series, but it's all collected as part of this omnibus. And this is the one that is drawn by Jason Armstrong, and his art is so beautiful. It's like Mignola and Darwin Cook. It's like a beautiful amalgam of both of those artists, and oh my gosh, it just works. And it's such a crazy story. Got a guy in a suit. You have evil Nazi agents. You have this giant ape creature that is coming and fighting the lobster. You have this magician who might be the devil. And again, all this taking place in the 1930s, because all this takes place in the past. This story is so phenomenal. And his artwork, Armstrong's artwork, again, has to have that Mignola flair, as you'll see throughout this book. And of course, the color always brings it together. But it almost feels like Mignola handpicks these artists that have to have a very similar style to his. He does all the covers. And then, of course, the back of the book, showcasing the character designs and extras like original art pages and layouts, covers. It's a beautiful collection, and I'm so glad we finally got one. Years. I didn't think they were ever going to do a Lobster Johnson collection, but now we got two of them. The book has 472 pages and retails for $39.99. There's your end sheets, and it has sewn binding. The paper is this thick, glossy paper. Next up, we have Den. This is part of the Richard Corbin Library. This is actually the second volume of the Richard Corbin Library. A couple months ago, I did an overview of the very first release, and that was the Murky World, and we'll look at those together. And here we have Den, Neverwhere, 1, the Corbin logo, and then the Dark Horse logo there. And then the back of the book. Richard Corbin's masterpiece at last back in print after decades. And down here, much like the first volume, or the Murky World volume rather, you have the Dark Horse logo and the Fantagraphics Press logo there. $34.99. So let's put it right beside the Murky World hardcover that came out a couple months ago. So the Richard Corbin has that foil finish to it, and then Murky World, and then you have Den Neverwhere, and the volume 1 right there. And underneath the dust jacket is the same image, except it's blown up. It doesn't have a frame around it, and that gold finish, which is really beautiful around that frame. And there you go, Richard Corbin right there. And it's textless, the spine looking the same without the foil on Richard Corbin's name, the foil stamp, and then the back of the book. Volume 1, Neverwhere. Alright, now before I even crack this book open, I know that I like to mention when things are mature content. This one does have mature content, just in case. I can't show. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I can show. It's just one of those books, and it's crazy. So just stay with me. Oh, and one more thing: the flaps, absolutely nothing on them, nothing at all. All right, let's go ahead and open this up. And you have this beautiful, crazy end sheet right here, the Neverwhere. And then Richard Corbin. So Richard Corbin does the art and the script. Nate Pecchios of Blobot does the lettering. And then Jose Villarrubia is the project art director, but he's the one that does the coloring. Like he remastered the colors, and they look absolutely stunning. As a matter of fact, he kicks off the forward right here. So there's a forward by Jose Villarrubia, talking about just how complete this reprint is, and I'll talk about that here in a second. There's an introduction from Patton Oswalt talking about how crazy this world you're about to enter, and you have no idea what you're in for if you've never read anything by Richard Corbin. I did my overview of Murky World, and I remember seeing some of the comments like, wow, this stuff is crazy. Yeah, and that's what makes it so damn awesome. Alright, so Den. The short story of Den is about this young boy who ends up going to another world. And in another world, let me make sure I can show some pages here, because we are talking about Richard Corbin. Okay, I think we're okay right here. So, in another world, he's just known as Den. Now, his name is David Allen, or no, not David Allen, David Ellis Norman. That's his name. But he can't remember, so all he really remembers in this other world is his acronym to his name, which is Den. And all he knows is that his uncle, who's been missing for a while, had built this machine, and he ends up going to another world. When he's in this other world, this young boy becomes this super muscular guy with a big appendage, if you know what I mean. And that's part of the reason why I can't show very many of the drawings, because this dude is completely naked, and rightly so, because of his large appendage. But he is in this world, and he is lost, and he is not alone. He ends up meeting a young woman named Kath, who is also from another world. Well, I can at least put some near mint condition on that boobage right there. But that is every page just about has full frontal nudity, and Corbin never discriminated. Like, it's either a young lady or a super muscular guy. And Den is on a mission to get out of this world, with or without Kath, and that's it. But that's really not why you get this book right here. That very Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell, who, of course, Richard Corbin did the cover for. That's not why you buy Richard Corbin books. You buy them for the beautiful, beautiful artwork, and it is a huge experience. It's not like anything you've encountered before. And I've said the same thing about Murky World. This stuff right here has never been published in quite a complete order like this. It's crazy. Here, let's look at some more images. Because I remember my buddy Mike, he was the heavy metal guy out of the group. He was the guy, not just music, but the heavy metal magazine. That was the first time I remember seeing that magazine, was at his house. And oh my gosh, when we got the movie. So if you ever watched the heavy metal movie, one of those stories is Den by Richard Corbin, and it has a really interesting story, like an origin where it started. Started off by him doing an independent film project, and then of course later on with Heavy Metal magazine, he published it as a comic book. However, those issues were impossible to find. Even though Mike was my freaking heavy metal guy, he did not have like issues 2. He had the first one, but he didn't have like 2 and 5 and 7. Oh my gosh. So I never got to read these stories in any kind of order. Like, so it's crazy to own it like this and to finally be able to read it. The lettering has been done over, so it's been remastered, and that's what Jose Villarrubia was talking about, how much more complete it feels, how the lettering brings everything together. So if you have those old magazines, this has new lettering. I got to jump around a little bit because I'm not sure what I can show because YouTube's like, nope. But yeah, if you were a fan of Heavy Metal magazine, that's where you found this stuff, and that's where I found it. And to have it all in one big, beautiful deluxe edition, oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. And this was tough because I love Iron Prometheus. I love Shaolin Cowboy. And those other Hellboy stories I hadn't read were great. But this gets the seal of approval. This is a must for anybody that loves just this visual medium. You know, the comics are not just about the story, and the story is fine, right? But it's one you've seen before. Skinny kid turns into a super muscular guy. But I guarantee you ain't seen Superman swing like this. That's for damn sure. This is just so amazing that we actually have this. Because I know when Richard Corbin was alive, I don't think he wanted this released. He wanted his new stuff released. He didn't want to go back to his old stuff. Now, sadly, he passed away in 2020, and his wife is the one that pretty much said, yeah, we'll release everything that he did. So it's crazy to go back to these stories that I know they released some trade paperbacks of these. I remember seeing them, but they were just outrageously overpriced. And now it's released in one beautiful deluxe edition. Now, all the way in the back, we do have some extras. You have a forward by Fritz Lieber from 1977. You have a forward here by Bruce Jones. Bruce Jones is one of those phenomenal writers from the horror genre. He wrote a lot of stuff for Warren magazine. You have some of the gallery stuff here, the 1960s black and white stuff. And this is the Neverwhere Castle from 1968. Yeah, sure, I can show that. You have the cover to Grim Wit. So yeah, a lot of the stuff I've never read. So to sit down and read it all, which is exactly what I did, it just reminded me of being a kid, reading things that I knew I shouldn't be reading. I'm sure none of you out there can relate to that. And your end sheets right here. 128 pages, and the book retails for $34.99. Last but certainly not least, the latest Shaolin Cowboy hardcover to be released. Cruel to Be Kin. Jeff Darrow, Dave Stewart. Oh my gosh. This book is so crazy. I love it. And this is definitely last but not least. The Shaolin Cowboy, Cruel to Be Kin, Jeff Darrow, and the Dark Horse logo. And the horse up there. And if you've never seen Shaolin Cowboy, this is another one that's, oh my gosh, just hold on to your butts because this stuff is crazy and I love it. Much like the Hellboy library editions, or actually it's the art book, The Art of Hellboy, has this cloth, almost like a woolen cotton finish to it right here, but the rest of the book has a flat finish to it. It's just the spine area right here. All right, we're going to crack this book open, and yeah, it's another one of those mature ratings, but mainly due to the violence and some nudity, so just as a heads up. But if you've never seen a Shaolin Cowboy comic, man, you are in for a treat just looking at some of the stuff in here. All right, let's go ahead and open this up. Prepare for some madness. All right, so here's a silhouette of our main character, the Shaolin Cowboy, with his buddy, the Komodo dragon there. And here is the credits page. So you have the story and art by Jeff Darrow, Dave Stewart doing the coloring. Oh, this is so awesome. You have the color flats by Mark Sweeney, Raunak Singh, and Fred Paculba, Josh Laird, and Gabe Fisher. And then the lettering by Nate Piekos of Blambot. And just absorb this page right here to kind of get an idea of why people love Jeff Darrow's artwork. See what I mean? It was hard to choose, but I think I went with the Den book because, I mean, it's Richard Corbin all in one Den, and I think that there's going to be a couple more, like, I think maybe a total of 5 of them. All right, so Shaolin Cowboy. What the heck is this? You've heard about it. You've seen it at comic book stores. It's all about this Shaolin Cowboy who's wandering the land. He's a wanted man in some books. Sometimes he's traveling with a donkey. No, he's not a donkey. I'm sorry. He's a mule. Talking mule. He has no name. So he's kind of like the man with no name. The kind of John Wayne Buddha. Sure. That's what the Komodo dragon here is saying. So in this world that is not even explained, you're just thrown into the madness, which I love. We have creatures that can talk. Sometimes they're anthropomorphic. Is this the possible future? Is this an alternate reality? Doesn't matter. Just fall in love with his art. We have this Komodo who's trying to eat his baby son, and the baby's like, "Oh, don't eat me, Dad." And the Shaolin Cowboy walks in, and he's like, "Hey, don't do that." He's vegetarian. He can't eat any meat. He beats the crap out of the Komodo dragon. He always tries to find a pacifist way of solving problems. He fights with not just a sword, but also a gun from time to time. And he's a complete badass. There's his parasol that unleashes his sword. That's his sheath. And yeah, he makes a friend in this particular volume. There's the squid baby boy guy. It's a great look at the amount of detail. This is insanity. Oh my gosh, I love this stuff. And yeah, it's just one bad thing happening after another with his buddy the Komodo dragon, and the Komodo dragon is telling the story of the Shaolin Cowboy. He's telling it to somebody else that you'll see later on. But there are ridiculous amounts of fight with some amazing layouts and backgrounds. Oh my gosh. Sometimes, I look at things like this and I just think, man, that's not fair. Just how somebody is this talented. And Darrow he's an amazing artist. And it is just insanity after insanity. It's one fight after another. This thing eventually merges with the squid. He sends a bunch of birds to fight him. The birds form into one giant naked bird. I don't know why I said naked. He has a fight out with these idiots right here. That is a badass fight. Look at that. This is so freaking awesome. Blowing away these people left and right. And the job's not done. Because he still has to wander the land at the end of the day. Looking for peace. Oh, man. I'm so glad. It's been a while since we've had one of these, and you can probably tell why it's a while. I think Darrow now just works at his own pace, which I love, because at the end, we get beautiful stuff like this. In the back, we get the covers. So this collects the Shaolin Cowboy Crew to Begin 1 through 7. And there's also variant covers here, too, like by Mike Mignola, Alice Darrow, and Frank Quitely. And Ed Piskor there. Stan Sakai. Nice. Steve Scrose. Duncan Fregedo. And this is Jim Rugg right there. Katsuya Terada. Fabio Moon. Anyway, I'm not going to go through each of these, but did want to show them. And then the sketchbook back here. With some notes. I love when the artists join in and, how long something took or why they decided to change a particular angle. For my brother, my teacher, and my hero, Andrew Vox, who passed away in 2021. And then your end sheets. The book has 240 pages. And it has sewn binding. This one is another one that's mature because of the violence, like I said earlier. The language. And this one is printed in glossy paper, but the glossy paper isn't as thick as like the Lobster Johnson or even the Den book. Not to say that it's thin, but it's not as thick as those books. It's probably because I just held them in my hands. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, And you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over 40 euros. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which books you're picking up. Are you a Hellboy completist? You have to have everything in the Hellboy universe. Have you been checking out the Shaolin Cowboy? And of course, what do you think of the Richard Corbin collection? I think they are off to a phenomenal start, and I would love to see the entirety of his stories collected in this particular format. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.